Hollywood loves its fairy tales. The red carpets, the dazzling premieres, the carefully rehearsed interviews where everyone claims the set was magical and their co-stars were absolute legends. But every once in a while, the mask slips, the smile cracks, and out pours the raw, ugly, gloriously messy truth that publicists have been desperately trying to bury for years. Buckle up because these megastars threw the script out the window and said exactly what they thought, and the fallout was absolutely spectacular. Emilia Clarke and Jason Momoa, Game of Thrones. Let's start with the confession that broke the internet before breaking the internet was even a thing. Picture this. One of television's most brutally intense scenes, a moment that made millions of viewers shift uncomfortably in their seats, and right in the middle of it all, standing in nothing but confidence in a fluorescent pink fluffy sock, was Jason Momoa.
He decided to not use a modesty sock, but use a beautiful pink fluffy sock.
Yes, that Jason Momoa. The mountain of a man who makes other men feel like decorative houseplants, decided that a standard modesty covering simply wasn't his style. Instead, he strutted onto the set of Game of Thrones' most controversial scene, sporting what can only be described as the world's most aggressively cheerful piece of footwear.
He's a funny man.
He doesn't look like
Jason
a funny
Momoa.
man.
He doesn't look funny, but he can be very funny. A little bit of whiskey and he's very funny.
Emilia Clarke, barely able to keep a straight face, later confessed it was a kind of violent sex scene. So he decided to not use a modesty sock, but use a beautiful pink fluffy sock. I don't know what to do.
A kind of violent sex scene. So he decided to, for one of the scenes which was on his back and my face, he decided to not use a modesty sock, but use a beautiful pink fluffy sock. It's huge and it's pink and I don't know what to do.
And honestly, neither do we, Emilia. Neither do we. Only a man of Momoa's almost supernatural charisma could turn one of the darkest moments in prestige television into something that had the entire cast fighting to suppress hysterical laughter. The scene traumatized audiences worldwide. The fluffy pink sock traumatized the crew. And we are all somehow better for knowing this. Christopher Reeve versus Marlon Brando, Superman, 1978. Here is where things get genuinely explosive. In 1982, Christopher Reeve, the man who made the entire world believe a human being could fly, sat down for an interview and proceeded to absolutely dismantle the legacy of the most worshipped actor in Hollywood history.
I must say, I don't say this to be vicious, but I don't worship at the altar of Marlon Brando.
With the kind of polite devastation that only truly confident people can deploy, Reeve looked directly into the camera and said what no one in the industry dared whisper, let alone broadcast. I don't worship at the altar of Marlon Brando, he declared, with the calm of a man who has absolutely nothing to lose.
I must say, I don't say this to be vicious, but I don't worship at the altar of Marlon Brando.
I feel that he's copped out in a certain way. He could really be inspiring a whole generation of actors.
Because I feel that he's copped out in a certain way. He could really be inspiring a whole generation of actors.
But what happened is the press loved him whether he was good, bad, or indifferent. So he doesn't care anymore.
But what happened is the press loved him whether he was good, bad, or indifferent. So he doesn't care anymore.
And if that wasn't already enough to make Hollywood choke on its champagne, Reeve went further.
And I just think it would be sad to be 53, whatever he is, and not give a damn, that's all. I just think it's too bad that the man has kind of been forced into that hostility.
Was it exciting working with the legendary Brando? Not really, no. I had a wonderful time, but the man didn't care. He just took the $2 million and ran.
Was it exciting to work with him, though?
Not really, no. No, I had a wonderful time, but the man didn't care. I'm sorry. He just, took the $2 million and ran,
Yeah.
$2 million barely showed up and was canonized as a genius regardless. Reeve wasn't wrong. He was just the only person brave enough, or perhaps reckless enough, to say it out loud.
I appreciate you being here. It was a lot of fun
Marlon's
meeting
gonna
you.
kill me, but
No,
anyway,
no.
thank you.
The Man of Steel, it turns out, had a spine made of the same indestructible material. George Takei versus William Shatner, Star Trek. The USS Enterprise was sold to generations of fans as a vessel of unity, diversity, and interstellar brotherhood. What it actually was, according to George Takei, was a floating monument to one man's catastrophically oversized ego. And that man was William Shatner, Captain Kirk himself, whose gravitational pull apparently bent not just space-time, but every single camera angle on set directly toward his face.
Bill is a dynamic presence. He enjoys being the center of everything. You may have heard about some of the difficulties that cast members had.
Takei, with the measured precision of someone who has been holding this in for approximately 5 decades, explained exactly how the power dynamics worked aboard the most famous fictional spaceship in history. Bill is a dynamic presence, he began, with the kind of diplomatic understatement that deserves its own acting award. He enjoys being the center of everything. The mechanics were almost elegant in their brutality. A scene would be set up focusing on another cast member. Then, Shatner would drift over to the director for a quiet conspiratorial conversation. And suddenly, almost as if by cosmic inevitability,
We might be preparing a scene where it'd be a close-up on you, and then it would shift to Bill. Then you'd see Bill in a whispered conversation with the director.
the camera would swing around, the setup would transform, and there would be Kirk, front and center, while his co-star was reduced to a disembodied offstage voice. Taki described it as something that has a way of rubbing you in one direction.
And the setup was changed, and it was on Bill, and you were the offstage voice. And so things like that, sometimes has a way of rubbing you in one direction.
The most diplomatic description of systematic scene stealing in the entire history of show business. Beam me up from this ego trip indeed. Jim Carrey versus Tommy Lee Jones, Batman Forever, 1995. Jim Carrey is by virtually any measure one of the most relentlessly likable human beings ever to grace a film set. The man radiates infectious, almost aggressive joy. So when he revealed, in an interview with the late Norm Macdonald, that Tommy Lee Jones had looked him dead in the eye and said, "I hate you, I really don't like you," the world genuinely struggled to process it.
Like this, and he went like to hug me, and he said, "I hate you. I really don't like you."
According to Carrey, the moment came when he cheerfully approached Jones at a restaurant, the way he approaches everything, with the luminous, unstoppable enthusiasm of a golden retriever who just discovered a trampoline. Jones went pale. Then he started shaking. Then, in what Carrey could only describe as someone emerging from a very vivid murder fantasy, Jones grabbed him in an agitated near embrace and delivered his verdict with startling directness. "I hate you. I really don't like you. The reason..."
I hate you. I really don't like you.
Jones allegedly told Carrey that his comedic energy was destroying his ability to stay in character. Apparently, Tommy Lee Jones considered Carrey's very existence on set a threat to the artistic integrity of a movie, where men in rubber batsuits fought a villain who asked people riddles.
He taekwondo'd my against the brick wall. Went, he's 6'5" and caught me off guard, knocked all the air at me. I was like, why?
The irony is almost too magnificent to be accidental. Channing Tatum, G.I. Joe. The Rise of Cobra, 2009. Channing Tatum did not want to make G.I. Joe. He tried to get out of G.I. Joe. He begged, presumably, to be released from G.I. Joe. And then the studio pulled out a contract he had signed in the starry-eyed early days of his career, back when he would have agreed to dress as a sentient filing cabinet if it meant getting work, and informed him with cold corporate clarity, "You're doing this, or we're going to sue you."
I'll be honest, I hate that movie.
You do? Why do you hate that movie?
I hate that movie.
So he made the movie, and years later, with the liberating confidence of a man who has since become one of the biggest stars on the planet, Tatum sat in an interview chair and delivered what is perhaps the most gloriously honest piece of studio film criticism ever committed to tape.
So I was pushed into doing that movie. So from a movie that, from Coach Carter, I actually, they signed me for a 3-picture deal.
But do you have no option to say,
no
hey,
option.
In other words, hey,
you're doing this.
You're doing this,
or we're going to sue you.
Right. Yeah.
"I'll be honest," he said, with the expression of someone finally exhaling after years of holding their breath. "I freaking hate that movie. No hedging, no diplomatic softening. No. It was a challenging but ultimately rewarding creative experience. Just pure, unvarnished, contractually delayed contempt. G.I. Joe reportedly cost over $175 million to produce. Channing Tatum hates it, and somehow, that makes the whole thing significantly more entertaining than the film itself. Ryan Reynolds, X-Men Origins, Wolverine, 2009. Ryan Reynolds is perhaps the only human being alive who can discuss being professionally humiliated with the kind of gleeful self-awareness that makes you love him more for it. So when he confessed that his first appearance as Deadpool...
Get the part because you were sort of already attached to Deadpool, or was that a total coincidence?
Yeah, I was already attached to the Deadpool movie.
The role that would eventually make him an international phenomenon came about essentially because the studio held a gun to his head. It felt less like a scandal and more like the setup to one of his own jokes. Reynolds had been attached to a standalone Deadpool project for years. Then, X-Men Origins, Wolverine came along.
We hadn't at that point written the script yet, but that came along, and it was sort of like play Deadpool in this movie, or we'll get someone else to.
And Fox delivered their offer with all the warmth and flexibility of a tax audit. Play Deadpool in this movie, or we will simply find someone else for the character you've been developing. Reynolds, trapped and apparently too polite to litigate, agreed, but made his objections crystal clear from the beginning. I'll do it, but it's the wrong version, he told them.
And I just said, I'll do it, but it's the wrong version. It was, Deadpool wasn't correct in it.
They proceeded anyway. What they did to Deadpool in that film, sewing the merc with a mouth's mouth shut, stripping away everything that makes the character iconic, remains one of the most baffling creative decisions in superhero cinema history. Reynolds watched it happen in real time and could do nothing.
I had fun with the beginning stuff. I felt like that was pretty appropriate for Wade Wilson. The latter half is where they sort of called an audible at the last minute, and
I just was like, I can't do this, he admitted. Years later, he took complete control of the character and delivered two of the most beloved superhero films ever made. The best revenge, it turns out, is a $782 million box office opening. Burt Reynolds' Boogie Nights, 1997. Burt Reynolds received the greatest reviews of his career for Boogie Nights. Critics worshipped his performance. Awards bodies lined up to celebrate him. And Burt Reynolds, by his own admission, never once sat down to watch it. His discomfort with the material, a film exploring the adult entertainment industry, was not something he tried to hide or dress up in artsy language. It just wasn't my kind of film, he said bluntly, in the understatement of the decade.
It just wasn't my kind of film.
Right.
So I
the
thought
subject matter of making pornographic films and all that made you uncomfortable.
The subject matter made him deeply uncomfortable throughout the entire production, and his relationship with director Paul Thomas Anderson, now considered one of the finest filmmakers of his generation, was, to put it diplomatically, strained to the point of near violence. Reynolds admitted that when filming wrapped,
it did. It made me very uncomfortable.
I'm told that you were so uncomfortable about making the movie that after the movie was done, before you had even seen it,
his immediate instinct was not to attend a screening or read the reviews or celebrate the achievement. It was, apparently, to physically confront Anderson. I didn't want to hit him in the face, he clarified magnanimously. I just wanted to hit him.
You wanted to hit the director, Paul Thomas Anderson. You wanted to hit him in the face.
No, I didn't want to hit him in the face. I just wanted to hit him.
A distinction that surely brought great comfort to Anderson. To this day, Reynolds maintained he never watched the finished film, a decision that is somehow both deeply sad and magnificently stubborn in equal measure.
I heard at the time that you didn't even want to see yourself in Boogie Nights. Have you seen it yet?
No, I haven't seen it.
You haven't watched it?
No, I don't want to see it.
It's fantastic. Come on.
John Leguizamo versus Steven Seagal, Executive Decision, 1996. Steven Seagal walked onto the set of Executive Decision and, according to John Leguizamo, immediately announced to the assembled cast and crew that he was in command, that what he said was law, and that anyone who disagreed should make their peace with that reality. This declaration, delivered apparently in complete sincerity by a man who was playing a supporting character in someone else's action film, caused Leguizamo to burst out laughing on the spot.
We come in for rehearsals and he comes in, I'm in command. What I say is law. Anybody doesn't agree? And I was like,
Seagal did not appreciate the laughter. What followed was a physical altercation that Leguizamo described with the kind of vividly traumatized detail that suggests the memory has never fully faded. Seagal, 6 feet 5 inches of martial arts credentials and apparent hair trigger sensitivity, slammed Leguizamo against a brick wall with enough force to drive every cubic inch of air from his lungs.
He's 6'5" and caught me off guard, knocked all the air at me. I was like, why?
I was like, why? Leguizamo recalled, gasping. A question for the ages. Nobody on a film set should be getting physically assaulted for the crime of finding something funny. Nobody anywhere should really. But especially not on a Hollywood production where the craft service table is 10 feet away.
I started cracking up because he sounded like a retard, and he came up and he taekwondo'd my against the brick wall. I went,
and everyone is theoretically an adult professional. Kim Cattrall versus Sarah Jessica Parker, Sex and the City. For years, the tension between Kim Cattrall and Sarah Jessica Parker simmered beneath Hollywood's surface like a volcano that everyone pretended not to notice. Then Cattrall sat down with Piers Morgan and turned the heat up to incinerating. "We've never been friends," she stated, with the crisp finality of someone closing a door that was never really open. "We've been colleagues, and in some ways, it's a very healthy place to be. I just wish that Sarah had been nicer."
We've never been friends. We've been colleagues. And in some ways, it's a very healthy place to be. I just wish that Sarah had been nicer.
11 words. 11 words that set approximately every entertainment publication on Earth on fire simultaneously. Parker, confronted with Cattrall's remarks on Watch What Happens Live, responded with what appeared to be genuine devastation. "Just heartbroken," she said. "That's not the way I recall our experience." 2 women.
What was your reaction to Kim Cattrall telling Piers Morgan that you were never friends, just colleagues?
Just heartbroken. I don't know, I found it very upsetting.
2 completely different memories of the same years spent working together on one of the most successful television franchises in history. One of them is describing a warm professional relationship. The other is very pointedly wishing it had involved more basic human decency.
You know, that's not the way I recall our experience. So.
The audience, as always, gets to decide which version feels more convincing. Jeanette McCurdy, iCarly. This one isn't funny. This one is genuinely heartbreaking, and it deserves to be treated with the weight it carries. Jeanette McCurdy spent her childhood and adolescence as the star of one of Nickelodeon's most beloved shows. She was famous before she was old enough to fully understand what fame meant, or to consent to it in any meaningful way. And when she finally told the truth about her experience, it hit with the force of something that had been compressed under enormous pressure for a very long time. "iCarly was never your dream," an interviewer said. "Whose dream was it?" McCurdy didn't hesitate. "My mom's." Her mother, she explained, had wanted her to have a better life.
Whose dream was it?
My mom's. I think she wanted me to have a better life than she had, but I also think...
But pursued that goal through methods McCurdy later described as deeply unhealthy and rooted in her own unaddressed insecurities. By the age of 15, McCurdy was already embarrassed by the work she was doing. Her friends weren't impressed by Nickelodeon's stardom. The gap between the cheerful, sanitized character she played on screen and the reality of her daily experience was vast and widening. "I resent my career in a lot of ways," she said, with a rawness that made it impossible to look away. "I feel so unfulfilled by the roles that I played." A child star who never chose to be one.
I resent my career in a lot of ways. I think I feel so unfulfilled by the roles that I played and felt like it was the most just like cheesy, embarrassing.
Performing a dream that belonged to someone else. If there is a more damning indictment of how the entertainment industry treats young performers, it is difficult to imagine what it would look like.
I did the shows that I was on from like 13 to 21, and by 15, I was already embarrassed. You know, my friends at 15 weren't like watching this show. They're not like, "Oh, cool, you're on this Nickelodeon show." It was embarrassing.
Carrie Fisher, Star Wars: The Force Awakens, 2015. Carrie Fisher was many things. Brilliant, brutally funny, searingly honest, and constitutionally incapable of softening a truth to make other people comfortable. So when she revealed what Disney's instructions were regarding her return as Princess Leia,
Were you asked to physically transform at all as Princess Leia? I heard they asked you to lose weight.
They did. They always do.
she delivered the information with the dry, devastating precision that was her singular gift to the world. She was asked whether she'd been requested to physically transform for the role. They did, she confirmed. They always do. They want to hire part of me, not all of me. So they want to hire about 3/4. 3/4 of Carrie Fisher, the woman who survived addiction.
They want to hire part of me, not all of me. So they want to hire about 3/4. And so I have to get rid of the fourth somehow.
Mental illness, heartbreak, and Hollywood's industrial appetite for destroying the people it claims to celebrate. And Disney's primary concern was that there was too much of her. The casual cruelty embedded in that corporate calculation, delivered by Fisher with the magnificent indifference of someone who had long since stopped being surprised by the industry's capacity for dehumanization, says everything that needs to be said about how female bodies are commodified in mainstream cinema. Joel McHale on Chevy Chase Community was, at its best, a genuinely radical piece of television, a show that celebrated outsiders, mocked institutional cynicism, and built one of the most passionately devoted fan bases in the medium's history. It was also, according to Joel McHale, a workplace where Chevy Chase repeatedly made remarks so offensive that they ultimately contributed to his departure from the show. McHale, asked directly about the on-set drama, didn't perform elaborate diplomatic gymnastics. He confirmed that Chase had made comments directed at Donald Glover, one of the most talented multi-hyphenate artists of his generation.
There was an incident that happened.
What? I don't know, so I hope.
Oh, well, he made some remarks that were deemed to be racist, a comment that he made.
That were deemed to be racist. And then he added, without apparent ambiguity, and I think that was kind of it. It was kind of it. A legendary comedian, a show built on the premise of human connection and found family, and behavior so ugly that it poisoned the entire enterprise. The contrast between what Community said it was and what was apparently happening behind the cameras remains one of the more quietly devastating stories in recent television history.
Deemed to be racist, a comment that he made, and I think that was kind of it.
Kate Hudson on Dane Cook, My Best Friend's Girl, 2008. Sometimes the most damaging confessions are delivered with a laugh. Kate Hudson, strapped into a Vanity Fair lie detector test with nowhere to hide, was asked about the worst on-screen kiss of her career. The machine confirmed what her face was already broadcasting. Dane Cook. The woman who has kissed some of Hollywood's most celebrated leading men on camera looked at the readout, looked at the interviewer, and essentially canceled the entire memory in real time. No, canceled.
And like longhorns. You know what I mean?
How about let's add someone else to the mix?
Oh,
How about
jeez.
him? Now who's the better kisser?
No, canceled.
As far as public professional reviews go, it is difficult to think of a more efficient demolition. Aubrey Plaza, The To-Do List, 2013. Aubrey Plaza arrived on her first day of filming The To-Do List with a very specific mental image of what the day would involve. She had read the script. She knew her character was written doing something intimate and private.
I had it on the page, and it said, Brandy masturbates. And in my head, I envisioned a nice...
She had, in her mind's eye, constructed a tasteful, artfully framed scene, a hand drifting slowly out of frame, the imagination left to fill in the rest. Elegant, understated, manageable. What she found when she arrived on set.
Scene where you just see my hand slowly go out of frame.
Right, the frame stops.
The frame stops.
And then the hand,
here,
and then that's the left. The left is left to the imagination.
That's right. That's what I thought I was.
Was a camera bolted to the ceiling, a room full of older male crew members, and a director who, when Plaza asked for guidance, delivered the most succinct piece of direction in cinematic history. Masturbate like it says in the script. Plaza, to her enormous credit, committed completely, because that is what professionals do. But the gap between what she anticipated and what she walked into, the assumption that everything had been clearly communicated, the reality that it absolutely had not been.
Going into, but then when I showed up, the camera was mounted on the ceiling. I was in my underwear and a Clinton t-shirt, and there were a bunch of old men smoking.
Raises uncomfortable questions about how clearly and how early actors are briefed on exactly what they're agreeing to perform. Seth Rogen on Rihanna and Michael Cera. This is the End, 2013. This one begins as a story about creative spontaneity and ends as a medical incident. On the set of This Is the End, Michael Cera, the eternally gentle, soft-voiced embodiment of awkward innocence, apparently proposed to Rihanna that they make their interaction more authentic by engaging in a mutual reciprocal exchange of actual physical contact.
He asked her, "Can I slap your ass for real?" And she said, "You can slap my ass for real if I could slap you back in the face for real." And he was like, "Okay."
Rihanna, who did not become one of the most powerful women in global entertainment by backing down from anything, accepted with one additional condition. Whatever Cera initiated, she would return in kind, directly to the face. Cera agreed. They repeated the exchange multiple times, and then, on the fourth attempt, Rihanna, who presumably decided that if something is worth doing, it is worth doing with complete commitment, delivered a blow of such precise and stunning force.
And we did it like 3 or 4 times, and on the 4th time, she like smacked the f***ing shit out of him so hard that and she like cupped his ear.
That it disrupted Cera's equilibrium. Literally. As in, the fluid in his inner ear was sufficiently disturbed that he had to be escorted to his trailer to recover horizontally for 30 minutes. Seth Rogen told this story with the gleeful, slightly appalled enthusiasm of a man who watched the whole thing happen from 10 feet away.
And actually like whacked out his equilibrium, and he had to go like lay down in his trailer for around half an hour.
And still can't quite believe it was real. Neither, frankly, can we. Kurt Russell, The Hateful Eight, 2015. And finally, the story that ended a museum's trust in Hollywood forever. While filming Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight, Kurt Russell was handed what he believed to be a prop guitar. He had been instructed to play the scene to its natural conclusion, to keep going, to not stop, to let the moment breathe until Tarantino called cut.
Quentin just said, I said, "How far do you want me to go?" He said, "Just go until I say stop." I said, "So if you don't say stop, I smash the guitar." He said, "Yeah, great, just keep going."
So Russell played, and then, in the full flood of the scene's momentum, he smashed the guitar against a hard surface with the force of someone who had been told, essentially, to hold nothing back. Jennifer Jason Leigh's reaction told the story before anyone said a word.
And I just kept going, and I took the thing, and I said the line, music time's over, or whatever it was, and wheeled, and I said, "Oh, yeah, he wants me to smash it," so I smashed the guitar.
Her face registered something between shock and horror, the expression of a person watching something irreplaceable being destroyed in real time. Because that is precisely what was happening. The guitar was not a prop. It was a 145-year-old antique on loan from a museum, with presumably very specific and documented instructions about how it was to be handled. Russell had no idea. Nobody had told him. And now it was in pieces.
And then we cut, and she was, "I can't believe that just happened." I was like, what? She said, "You just smashed the real guitar."
The museum, upon learning what had happened to their irreplaceable historical instrument, responded by announcing they would never, under any circumstances, for any production, regardless of the fee offered, loan another guitar to Hollywood again. Tarantino got his shot. The museum got a policy, and Kurt Russell got a story he will probably still be telling with visible discomfort at the age of 95. Hollywood sells us dreams. But the truth? The truth is always so much more interesting.